That's right, the governor of Golden Corral himself, J.B. Pritzker. He has waddled out to announce that from Illinois, from the state of Illinois, whose congressional districts right now look like worms with vertigo, has announced that Illinois is going to get out there and they're going to fight back against the Supreme Court of the United States. Interesting. So here, J.B. Pritzker's statement, he says, we must call this for what it is. It's voter suppression that will silence black and brown voters. Why? Again, why is there this idea that black and brown voters are all Democrats? It's very, very weird. It's a very weird thing to say. That you have black people and brown people, they all must think the same. After all, as Biden says, you got rich kids and then black kids, or you got, poor kids or white kids. I mean, do you really have to make it so obvious and on the nose here? But he also released a little statement here. There's kind of an awkward pause in the audio that, again, kind of an audiophile corruption thing, but it's worth listening to.
The decision by the Supreme Court today on the Voting Rights Act is an abomination. It is an attack on a crown jewel of our democracy.
Racial segregation.
Illinois is the proud home to having sent more black congresspeople to Washington than any other state in the country. And the Voting Rights Act is an attack on black and brown people, on people of color, on minorities. The decision that was made today, rather by SCOTUS about the Voting Rights Act, is an attack on minorities across this country. We're not going to stand for it in Illinois. We're going to push back. We have options for pushing back.
So we have options. We have options, which means they're going to gerrymander even harder. So again, Illinois is ranked as one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. It looks like a child trying to describe a Jackson Pollock painting. I mean, it's got districts that even Jon Stewart is like, my goodness. So anyway, you got a little Pritzker out there. Also, I love that he says that Illinois has sent all of these black members to Congress. I will remind you that the very first 23 black members of Congress were all Republicans. But anywho, sorry, just to make this clear, let's dig into actually some of the reason that this is particularly hilarious. What is the new Illinois gerrymandered map possibly going to look like here? It looks like this. So for those of you that are not watching the live stream, but for those of you that are, out in your cars and about listening to podcasts and things, I want you to imagine really ugly hair. That is what the proposed possible new gerrymandered Illinois map might look like. It is essentially taking the state and carving it into a ton of teeny tiny, sort of diagonal, but mostly vertical slices, so that every single district gets a little bit of Chicago and then a huge chunk of the rest of the state to cancel out anyone in rural areas. Which, I mean, it's just a mess. It is an absolute mess. Now, if they did this, Illinois would gain a whopping 3 seats. That's it. A whole just 3 seats. Because it's already so gerrymandered. It's already such a mess. Even if they went full no Republicans, period, we hate all of you. Which, by the way, and if that does happen, I would personally love to see Governor Mike Braun just go ahead and send the Indiana National Guard in and liberate the southern 2/3 of the state. Those poor people. But anywho, this would be Illinois. Now, California suggested the same thing. Again, this insane scribble scrabble that looks like my kids trying to draw on the patio glass doors with crayon. It is a nightmare and a mess, which led to one of the best quips of the day, which is that when Republicans, quote unquote, gerrymander, it looks like just, wow, hey, look, like Alabama here. You have a couple of evenly sized, blocky chunk districts. Someone might even call them regions. You have a couple of regions that people are in. And then when Democrats gerrymander, it looks like a schizophrenic on 3 Celsius energy drinks somehow got a hold of a blue colored pencil. I mean, it looks like your cat got a hold of a troll doll. It's a disaster. It doesn't look good for the rest of the country. It really is not a good look, and it's not getting any better for them because, again, as I told you, a motion has been filed by Louisiana to expedite this to happen a little bit sooner. And speaking of things happening sooner before the midterms, this brings us to Florida. The Florida House of Representatives today, again, see Republican gerrymandering, they're just blocks. No big loopy-doopy spaghetti. you can kind of see just a smidgen of the loopness. In what district is that here? 15? Other than that, they are chunks. You have honey bunches of congressional districts being passed today in Florida. So how did the Democrats in the House in Florida act? Well, Representative Angie Nixon just had a complete crash out. I mean, she got out the purple plastic bullhorn from Party City and she just went to town.
Destroy our democracy. This is a violation of the Constitution.
By the way, this is what you have a sergeant at arms for. The sergeant at arms is this really cool thing in the Roberts Rules of Order, one of the only cool things. And when someone is being unruly and acting like, well, this, fascinating behavior, then, you take the sergeant at arms and you say, Sarge, this woman has lost her composure. And then he grabs her by the arm and he escorts her out of the room. But anyway, this is as they were passing the bill to redistrict Florida.
It's a violation of the Constitution. I'm out of order, but y'all are doing illegal.
Representative Persons Mullica has waived closed. The question now recurs on final passage of HB 1D. The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will proceed to vote. Have all members voted?
So they unlock the machine, and that means that everyone is allowed to vote, and then also final bets are placed on your horse.
Have all members voted? The clerk will lock the machine and announce the vote.
83 yeas, 28 nays, Mr. Speaker.
Show the bill passes. Read the next bill.
Man, Magenta from Blue's Clues really aged poorly.
None on the desk, Mr. Speaker.
All right, so 83 votes yes, 26 votes no. That gets Republicans an additional 4 seats in Florida. So other than Representative Angie Nixon engaging in fascinating behavior, there's more. But wait, there's more. And I'm not talking about OxyClean. Alabama currently has a direct appeal pending before the Supreme Court over its court-imposed congressional map that also added a second majority black seat. Meaning this, if Louisiana and Alabama, which are essentially asking the Supreme Court, please, oh, please, pretty please, would you get some of these racially gerrymandered districts that we've been ordered to put in by federal courts out, so that we can get the primary process moving? It is a midterm year. Congressmen and women are up for election. We would like to not have to tell people that your district depends on what color you are. And that's likely going to go their way because also the Supreme Court, which didn't really take any action since November, was likely waiting for this particular ruling. Also, on the 27th, 2 days ago, in a 6-3 vote, the Supreme Court officially reversed a ruling that struck down the Texas congressional map. So Texas had created a congressional map that gave Republicans more seats, but also took down racially based districts and said, no, you can just be Texans. How about that? You can be from the Austin area. You can be from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You can be from, and on and on and on. And there was a court that ordered Texas to put the racial districts back in. And the Supreme Court had issued a stay. A stay is a temporary, hang on there, son, you just wait a second. They have officially ruled on the 27th. That court is ridiculous. Not necessarily the R word I was going for, but that court's ridiculous. And Texas, you can go ahead and redistrict as you would like. Because again, if you are redistricting just based on whether or not there is a Republican or Democrat majority, that's fine. That's allowed. That kind of gerrymandering is fine. If you're gerrymandering based on skin color, you're not allowed to do that. If you are lying on the ballot, if you're making the ballot really convoluted like Virginia, that's up for debate, but also probably not going to work. Also in Texas and in Florida, they called special sessions just for redistricting. In Virginia, they tried to shove it in last minute under a different emergency session. You also cannot do that according to former Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli. From Debbie Harkness asks, hey, will this whole Supreme Court thing, will this actually affect Virginia redistricting? And I've gotten about 18 variants of that today. Whether asking whether the question is going to affect things maybe in Indiana or whether we're looking at, other states getting messed with. The answer is mostly no. Now, I think that the Virginia Supreme Court is likely to strike this down, not because of racial districts, which is what was swatted down today. You're not allowed to racially segregate stuff like this. That's what Alito's opinion stated. But the core problem for Virginia is that the ballot initiative, first of all, I hate constitutional referendums. They're stupid. The idea that you just say, hey, do you guys think everything should just be different? And then the ballot measure has to be created, which in Virginia's case was done improperly in a session that wasn't for that. And then number two, they wrote the ballot, like the constitutional referendum, they wrote it like a Facebook terms and service agreement. Like, do you agree that justice and fairness and friendship and in this neighborhood should all be friendly and wonderful? Oh, look, there's the trolley. I mean, that kind of crap was the ballot referendum. So that was pushed out to the Virginian people. That's likely what's going to get it struck down, according to, again, former Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli. He has a great interview with this. I know the CNN one has been pushed around. On his first interview regarding this with the Scott Jennings show, that's primo good stuff there. So to answer that question, I think the only state that could really be affected here might either be California or Illinois. And producer Josiah points out one of the reasons that this might be the case, one of the reasons this might in fact be the case, that the Illinois, especially with J.B. Pritzker, is rushing so quick to announce that he's going to do a new gerrymandering project, as producer Josiah points out, is that in the very last Illinois redistricting measure, they specifically organized districts around like racial lines. So sorry, that's the Indiana aquifer. That'll be the next question. So here is the current this is the current Illinois congressional map. Again, you can see the weird loop-de-loops and strange stuff. There are arguments to be made that when you get up around the essentially all of the Chicagoland area, there are several districts that are directly drawn around ethnic lines, which under the Supreme Court interpretation, that's now open to a lawsuit. So the Supreme Court wouldn't likely strike down the map. Someone would bring a lawsuit and say, hey, well, this is race-based. And given that J.B. Pritzker's been kind of open about that before, then the Supreme Court would strike that down. That would be the process. So as producer Josiah pointed out, the reason that we might see Virginia currently trying to go for the, and I'll try to flip back here. The reason you see Virginia currently trying to go through the really bizarre L'Oreal hair streaking down thing is because you can make the case, well, this is actually just partisan. And this would be the argument from the Illinois lawyers. We already know we are rigging this for Democrats. That is legal. Now, voters don't usually like that when you're honest and say, hey, we're rigging this partisanly. It would be what producer Josiah argues that may be why he's floating this already. Again, because it's partisan, not just race-based in this particular instance. So that being kind of Illinois House District 4 is the one that he's suggesting. I can't drag that in right now, but look it up. It appears to be a very racially based thing. So, you know, not too good, Don.